Come to me first. That's great.
It's rugby. You're on the ad, first of all. I mean...
Look, I have to admit, the first time I've seen it, and it did make me chuckle.
Right, me too.
Look, the Six Nations especially...
I feel robbed. I feel robbed of the chance to laugh many times last week because this was pulled.
Yeah, I mean, look, looking at it, I do laugh at it. The Six Nations especially, there's a lot of history behind each game. You know, England, Scotland, England, Wales. There's a lot of you know, stories behind it, background behind it. But I think when we look at acceptable teasing, I call it, it's quite regular in sport. You know, the Australians and the English, we have it all the time in cricket and rugby. And I think before England went out to Australia during the summer to do 3 tests in rugby, I think the Australians had this really funny promotional video against the English, but no one took that off and said they'll be racist.
They do it in cricket fairly often, even in the adverts.
Yeah. So I think the question is around this advert. It might have been one too far.
Home nations racism generally. I mean, we're a united kingdom, kind of.
Yeah.
Can't we take a joke?
The word racism is a very strong word to use, and that gets battered around quite a lot. Yeah. Like I said, I've been in rugby all my life. I've not experienced anything personally racism. And,
that's good to hear.
And in terms of, people call it banter. That's a hard word as well. Where does banter start and where does it stop? But I guess in my terms, with regards to acceptable teasing, I guess it's, you know, whatever people want to choose.
It's difficult, isn't it? Finding the right language to describe
in sport, in sport, it happens all the time, you know. And when you go to a rugby match, there's no hostility. No. You know, if I went to go and watch England v Scotland in Scotland, I could quite happily sit with the Scottish fans. We'll get on absolutely fine. The French are brilliant. They love the banter back and forth. So I think it's almost like, have we blown out of proportion? I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. What do you think, Christine? I mean, are we...
Well, I think it actually devalues the word racism because that is a much more serious offence. I mean, honestly, I think that advert was hootingly funny and it's completely ludicrous and it's telling that the BBC won't say how many complaints. But don't panic, Matthew, because I know I often put my foot in it. I'm not going to read the worst bits, but I just want to remind younger viewers that there was a wonderful song by Flanders and Swan called The English, the English, the English are best. And I won't read the worst lyrics, but I just want to read you 2 quick lines. The rottenest bits of these islands of ours we've left in the hands of 3 unfriendly powers. Examine the Irishman, Welshman or Scot, you'll find he's a stinker as likely or not. And then they go on to describe the worst characteristics, which I will not do, but just on the question of the game. And all the world over, each nation's the same. They've simply no notion of playing the game. They argue with umpires, they cheer when they've won, and they practice beforehand, which spoils all the fun. So that was just good-humoured banter. I mean, they're terribly rude about the Welsh and the Irish and the Scots, but, you know, so what? You could never do that now. It's ludicrous. I mean, it is absolutely ludicrous to call that ad, which was just
But what about generally?
Funny.
What about generally? I mean, there will be people from Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland that would say that if you go back through British history, there has been persecution, appalling treatment historically. Going back, we might have to go back a while. Some people, we don't have to go back that far at all. That's what they will say, that history will say that the English have repressed our friends in the other home nations.
But what's that got to do with that Welsh ad? I mean, it's just a bit of friendly banter. Of course, dreadful things happened in the Middle Ages. You know, we were burning people and torturing people, but that doesn't seem, what you've just described, doesn't seem to have any relevance at all. And as I said earlier, I think it's too easy nowadays for people to use a particular term which means something appalling much too lightly, and to call that Welsh racism against the English is just, frankly, pathetic. And for heaven's sake, the English won, they got their own back, so what are they complaining about?
And, you know, that historical thing you're saying about the English particularly, that's why everyone wants to get stuck into the English.
Yes, I guess
it is that historical stuff. That's why the Australians...
I can take it, but if a fellow English person can't, then their views must be heard.
Yes, they're not totally English, because the amazing thing about the English and the British is the sense of humour.
Right.
Around the world, it's famous. You know, the English do it really well.
Maybe that's
and the
just
Brits do it really well.
The Brits do it well. The Brits can we be inclusive? The Brits do it really well.
Yeah, but we can also be that the English do it. You know, they do it. They take the mickey out of themselves really well. They can take the mickey out of everyone, but they also out of themselves. There are some places like Australia where they have trouble taking the mickey out of themselves.
OK.
Brits can do it en masse.
So what do you think then when you hear about there's legislation that people make, the 96-hour police investigation to Anne Robinson?
Yeah, well,
said
fair
there was
enough.
no
She's a
room for
broadcaster.
worry.
She's a broadcaster.
Yeah, but she's on an entertainment show.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
It's a bit of
she has to
fun.
be careful. Oh, a bit of fun. You know, you have
Well,
to be
I can't
careful.
remember
We have to be
exactly what she
careful
said.
as communicators, what we say. I
Yeah.
think that's fair enough. Because it's a thin wedge. Jingoism, nationalism,
But
jingoism.
there's also,
it's
I do sometimes, I mean, I can say something which is quite clearly flippant, quite clearly supposed to be humour, full of good humour. And there will be people, one or two people, that will take grave offence, and then they feel that their right to take offence should take priority over my right to crack a gag.
Well, they can
So
take
where do you-
offence, but it still leaves
Right.
you with the right to crack a gag.
Right.
Everybody has the right to be
But
offended.
now we can call the police.
But then it's going all the other way because the people are being called snowflakes who take
Yeah.
offence too easily.
Perhaps.
And then the right wing uses that against us. Like,
Yep.
well, you can't be offended at all. Well,
It's almost like the boundaries have become grey, aren't they?
Yeah,
They
I think
really are.
I think this is the trouble when you try and draw boundaries where there has been so much fluidity
Just don't
over the
know,
years.
yeah.
and it's a game of sport. It's a game.
Well,
Do feel free to comment and give us a thumbs up if you feel inclined. For more clips from the show and exclusive behind-the-scenes videos, click here. If you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button here to be automatically informed when new videos are available. Links to our other social media platforms can be found in the description. Thanks for watching.